Mercedes gathered the preseason testing data, and it seems like the Brackley-based squad is in for an improvement of a season, judging by their comments. However, the current driver's situation, as well as Mercedes finding themselves in a very tricky situation when it comes to preferring one driver over the other, if the car is somehow competitive, gives more than enough reasons to think that the season would be anything but boring for the Silver Arrows. In order for them to complete this, they need a competitive car. So, how far has the W15 been improved with the new design and philosophy? And more importantly, what is the current situation with the legality of its front wing? The Silver Arrows have revamped the entire philosophy of the car, and they have brought some interesting upgrades, starting from the front of the car with its front wing and ending all the way with the floor and the side pod concept. But during the preseason testing, Mercedes weren't really pushing for qualifying low-fuel laps for the majority of the sessions. They wanted to gather as much race-pace performance as possible in order to understand whether the changes they've made in their car correlate to the results they've received in the simulator. When talking about this matter, Russell has elaborated on the goals of the team and whether or not they have improved over the winter, adding, "It was great to be back in the car, driving the W15 for the first time, and it does feel like a step in the right direction. But there's no hiding that our competitors have also done a really great job. We knew we had a mountain to climb with the form that Red Bull showed last year. We've now got a car mechanically where the aero guys can go and focus on building downforce upon that. But what Russell put a huge emphasis on is the fact that Mercedes wanted to see whether or not they could gather as much data as possible and not chase the sweet spot of the car, which was not the case in the past couple of years. This has raised some concerns in their rivals, such as Red Bull, who went on to state that through Marco that there's definitely some performance that's being hidden from their rivals in Brackley. The question is whether it's enough to kick them off the dominant path that they're currently on, which does seem like a far-fetched scenario right now. Even the technical director of Red Bull, Pierre Wache, went on to say that the front wing of Mercedes caught them by surprise, and it's a massive improvement in terms of creating an outwash from the forbidden Y250 vortex. We'll discuss this later in this video. As of right now, we want to focus more on the gains that Mercedes made in the past winter and how they've been able to translate the results from the simulator onto the track. One of the primary issues that was being targeted by the Brackley-based squad was the stability of the car, something that is poised to be fixed with the changes of chassis as well as the gearbox concept. This, however, limits Mercedes' ability to work on other areas of the car, such as improving the aerodynamic performances of the W15. Allison went on to emphasize this as the biggest flaw of having to change both the chassis and the gearbox of the car. But according to many F1 experts, this could also be a situation in which Mercedes would want to trick their rivals by making them look at the design of the front wing, while they are going to work on something much bigger in the backside of their factories. Elaborating on the performance that the car made during the preseason testing, with all of the changes being implemented on it in the past period, Russell went on to say, "You can definitely tell from the very beginning if the car's an improvement, and if it's nice to drive. It definitely is an improvement, there's no doubt about it. It was definitely pleasurable to drive yesterday. I had a good feeling with the car. When the car feels nice, but it's not quite at the pace, you just need to find downforce in the right places. But in this iteration of regulations, there's definitely a sweet spot for all of the teams. You want the car as low as possible, but you can't go too low in case you're bottoming out or you cause bouncing, which is still a little bit there in the background for some teams. It doesn't take a lot to find that sweet spot and find a lot of performance. Hopefully Red Bull is already in that sweet spot and we can close that gap, but it's going to take a lot of hard work to do so." While the preseason testing has been dubbed success from Mercedes because they found a lot of pace that they couldn't have hoped for in the previous 2 years with their flawed design, the team found around 0.3 of improvement during the preseason testing, which isn't that much when you look at it statistic-wise. However, it is of great importance to talk about the fact that Mercedes didn't actually chase fast qualifying laps, and they were vastly focused on the stability of the car as well as the newly founded concept, which according to Russell still lacks a little bit of rear downforce, even though the cockpit was moved 100mm back and the entire chassis and gearbox were changed. Hamilton has also praised the success that the team has had in the past couple of months, even though his move to Ferrari speaks otherwise without even trying the W15 on the asphalt for the first time. Activating the clause in his valid contract has stirred up some drama among the Mercedes circles, because the team would obviously restrict Hamilton from visiting the factory at a certain point, including the development of the 2024 version of their car, because it will contain a lot of valuable information for the 2025 season, one in which Hamilton will transfer his talents to the Maranello team. It's not like he doesn't already know a lot of stuff that's going on in Mercedes, it's just the fact that if the Silver Arrows turn out to be a lot more competitive than Ferrari in 2024, then they would have to be extremely cautious when it comes to leaking information through Hamilton or some of the departing engineers. When talking about the last season of Mercedes, Hamilton went on to explain the pace that he was expecting from the W15 after testing it out in Bahrain, adding, "We know we've got work to do, and we're not yet where we want to be. We knew that would be the case coming into the test though. We've got a great platform to build on. We'll go away and work hard over the next couple of days to go through all of the data from the test. I'm really excited for the start of the season next week, and we'll be heading into it in good shape." The car has been handling well, which correlates to the feeling that we had on the simulator ahead of coming here. We've got a very good base to build from. We're aware that there's a lot more lap time to find. We knew that would be the case ahead of the test, and Red Bull is looking very strong once again. Nevertheless, I'm confident that we're in a much better place than we were 12 months ago. And obviously, the front wing's innovative design has brought a lot to Mercedes being in this better place because the entire airflow starts from the front of the car and continues to the back of it. So if it's wrong from the start, it will continue to be wrong in the rest of the car as well. Many teams have already obliged to protest the wing's design, not because it's illegal, but because it might have the potential to create a trend that would effectively circle around the rules and would create something quite paradoxical. Bring back the Y250 Vortex from the front wing in a different order, even though it was strictly banned from the FIA. Yes, it's an innovative interpretation of the rules, and you have to give credit where it's due. And from this point of view, banning it would definitely show a bit of bias from the FIA towards Mercedes when it comes to their own innovations. But it's still to be seen whether this design would live to see the end of the season and whether other teams would build on it. When talking about its legality, Wolff was quite adamant that it was brought with the consensus of the FIA through dialogue and not by them bringing the wing to the grid and hoping that it would be labelled as legal just like that. Adding to this matter even further, Wolff said, "What was being put on the car has always followed and been exchanged with the FIA throughout the process. It's not like you have a clever idea and then you put it on for the test because that would be challenged, which is a long process." Still, the fact that Mercedes wouldn't have Hamilton's support throughout their development of the 2024 car, even though it's already been mostly tweaked based on his suggestions, goes on to show that the team found themselves in quite a non-wanted situation. The cockpit has been moved back 100mm thanks to Hamilton's wishes, and while the engineers in Brackley dubbed Hamilton to be wrong about the design and the concept first, it seems like they understood this a bit too late in order to convince him to remain in the team. The aftermath of his move to Ferrari is yet to be seen and witnessed because of all the engineers he could pull with him to the Maranello team. But considering the fact that it's much harder for a high-profile engineer to move from the team due to the gardening leave that Mercedes has imposed on their contracts, it's interesting to see how the 2024 season will pan out for the Silver Arrows. With this in mind, what do you think about the W15's performance during the preseason testing? And more importantly, where do you think the team will stand in the pecking order in 2024? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.